The Nerd Academy podcast is released weekly at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, available on our website at www.thenerdacademypodcast.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also help support the show by going to patreon.com/The Nerd Academy podcast, where every donation allows us to bring you more exciting content every week.
Good morning, class, and welcome back to the Nerd Academy Movie Club, the show where your favorite nerds sit down and watch some movies. I am your host and headmaster, Jarod Bachman-Stubbs, and joining me in the flesh once again is the inimitable, illustrious one and only Devin Arnold.
Dude, I feel so happy to be back. Just like being able to look at you
Yeah.
while you say some like ridiculous shit instead of just through
What kind of ridiculous shit did you miss me saying?
just most of your positivity regarding the last film. Or lack of maybe not hatred, but your interpretation of BVS and henceforth your interpretation of Justice League. I don't know. I just like being able to like give you a grin. That's like,
Listen, we've crossed the threshold of the Batman v Superman story. So I don't feel like there's much worse I could do at this point. But we are on to the next movie here in our final little Zack Snyder DCEU rewatch. And we are here with Justice League, the Joss Whedon directed version. And before we get into it, Devin, I think you got some numbers.
I do have some numbers. So the budget of this film, more than BVS, 300 million solidly in that area. In the United States, the film only grossed $230 million, 71 million short of the budget. And shout out to the rest of the world, because 428 million came from everywhere else. So a whopping total of $657.9 million. BVS did 830, 840, something in there. Like a little higher quality of film, and you're knocking on the doors of the billion. And this movie needs to almost double its box office to do that. And I think having just watched the movie.
Well, yeah, in all fairness, a lot of that has to do with the reshoots.
Yeah, and all the drama supporting it.
Like we got halfway through production of the movie and then decided to remake the whole movie.
Due to tragedy,
yes. And once we get through the numbers, we'll tell the whole story for probably the next to last time.
So yes, continuing, the movie has a 6.3 out of 10 on IMDb and a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Is that less than BVS?
I don't remember.
I thought BVS
feel
was
like
in like
BVS
the 60s.
I thought BVS was lower than that.
I hope not, because I think Justice League is vastly superior to Batman v Superman.
Yeah, Batman v Superman, also a 6.4 out of 10 on IMDb, but a 28%, 12% less than Justice League.
Justice League is way more than 12% better than Batman v Superman. That's a damn fact. But I don't know.
I like it. I like it. It's sitting at 40%. I like it sitting there. That feels right for me. So, what percent would you put it at? Doesn't have to relate to a letter grade, but
I mean, in a perfect world, I'd like for everybody to like the movie.
Oh, so you want it to be like mid to high 80s.
I would be okay if this movie was certified fresh.
All right, I guess we should get into why you feel that way.
Okay, so during the production or leading into post-production of Justice League, as we all know by this point, I don't mean to say that in a dismissive tone, just because it's a story that I feel like most people know, but we are going to address it here because it is very important. Zack Snyder had to, unfortunately, step away from the project. Now, there were rumors that Warner Brothers was still considering canning him regardless, but tragedy struck. His daughter had passed away, and he stepped away from the project for personal reasons, obviously, to be with family and tend to his own during that time. In the interim, to finish reshoots and post-production, WB brought on Avengers, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Firefly alum, and walking sack of shit, Joss Whedon, to finish the reshoots, thusly changing the movie almost in its entirety, giving it a very different tone, adding scenes, taking away scenes, editing parts, taking parts out, so on and so forth. And then we arrived at this version of Justice League that you and I just finished watching and just finished recording the audio commentary for.
Not as hilarious as the Man of Steel commentary. Because I guess this movie's definitely better than Man of Steel.
We agree on that.
Okay. My biases are coming in, and I don't mean them to. It's just...
I mean, this art is subjective. Your biases are part of how you enjoy it.
All right, well, BVS ruined Justice League for me. Like, taking the route, committing to the tone, I get that the director is going to change things and bringing in someone new. Things like that are going to happen. It's just going to be slightly different every time. However, like, he just copy and pasted Avengers into Justice League. And I get why that works for some people. It's just... And I get that the rest of the DCEU has kind of shifted in that regard too. If you saw Aquaman, you saw an octopus playing the drums. If you saw Shazam, Zachary Levi playing a 9-year-old, 12-year-old works. It's funny. It's fun. Wonder Woman 2 didn't really do it for me. A little too campy. But again, like, the tonal shift was very present in everything after Justice League. So at least they're consistent in that front. I was just such a fan of the tone they went for in Man of Steel and BVS. Not 100% of it. I don't think Superman needed to be a loner. I don't think it needed to be as just like a war documentary. And like, I don't think we needed that. But I think some of this movie goes too far for me. I loved Ray Fisher as Cyborg. I thought the Flash was going to grow into something more than what he was. So I really was sold on it for a while. I don't think we're ever going to see a Flash movie. And so, like,
you're going to take up Travis's bet that this movie never comes to theaters?
I like that bet. Listen, man, the amount of omens surrounding this movie, like, Ray Fisher probably not going to be in it. Ezra Miller.
WB said they removed him from the part because they were being petty bitches over him, calling out the sacks of shit who are enabling actual abuse of their employees at WB. Fuck all y'all.
Maybe that leaves a sour taste in what Whedon did too. But continuing, cool. Cyborg's no longer attached to it. Ezra Miller knocked almost a woman flat out and, like, hasn't really answered for that.
We haven't heard anything about it since it happened. The internet just decided to collectively forget. We didn't forget.
So surprising with cancel culture too. Like,
don't say those words.
Sorry.
Don't
but
make me want to drink. I hate the phrase cancel culture so fucking much.
Well, we're surrounded by it. The only reason they haven't touched Eminem is because most of his fans don't get on Instagram or Twitter. So
I don't. That's a conversation for a different.
You're right.
day.
I'm sorry.
I have not seen a single person say Eminem should be canceled for anything short of him just being bad at rapping now.
I don't think he's what he was, but this is also a conversation for another time. Anyways, The Flash could have been better for me in the movie. A little too much comedic relief playing to, I think, is like the humor of like 15, 16-year-olds and under, which I get. General audiences need to be appeased, I guess. Loved Aquaman in this movie. Little too many one-liners. But as far as like the character, his intro I thought was cool. Wonder Woman, I think, is like just a natural freaking leader. She makes me want to go out there and fight and save the world. And just, I love watching her kick ass. She just loves cutting everything in half that's thrown in her. And I could watch that all day. Batman. Funny guy.
Funny guy, that Bruce Wayne.
A little too funny for me.
Perfect Batman.
Elaborate.
This is the perfect interpretation. This is the perfect on-screen representation, I should say, of a Batman who is helped to find his humanity and his soul again through the camaraderie of others. It is a Bruce Wayne who is being forced to learn that he cannot work alone and he cannot do this by himself.
We got that at the end of BVS.
No,
he can't work alone. He can't do it by himself.
Yes, but he, in his mind, it was like, this war cannot be won if I do it by myself. He did not accept that he, as an individual, as a person, needs people around him.
For this one high stakes, 1 in a million battle scenario.
It took that for him to learn that lesson.
I think he could have learned the lesson better. That's what I'm saying. Like, it makes me angry when Superman shows up at the end and he smiles. It just...
Then me, again, okay, here's my thing. I watch, again, this admittedly trying to do comic book movies on the show where I'm trying to avoid doing nerd shit so that like we can talk about stuff independent of its source material for a little bit. But I can't help but watch these movies as a fan of the source material.
I'm a fan of the source material too.
I know you are. I know you are.
Giggly Batman.
I don't think he's giggly. I think he's acting more like a person and isn't the like caricature of I'm vengeance. Because that, for me, that brutal, vicious, bloodthirsty Batman is at the very beginning of his career. And if we end up in again in the worst case scenario of Dark Knight Returns for him, at the end of his career. But there comes a point where he kind of plateaus into being as close to a normal person as he can ever be. He's still this symbol of fear, but he's a symbol of fear to the people who need to be afraid of him. And the people of Gotham see him as their savior and as someone who can protect them from the forces of like abnormal evil that occupy Gotham. What we see in BVS, especially the Ultimate Cut, is someone who is not afraid of scaring the citizenry that he claims to want to defend. We see a Batman who's in it to vent his own rage. Here, we get to see Bruce embrace the idea of being a hero again and everything that comes with that. And seeing him find that faith in humanity and in himself again and have people prove to him that he's worth saving too, that's beautiful. I don't like how we got there. And in my opinion, it should be the Bat family that teaches him that lesson. It should be Dick Grayson and Jason and Barbara and Tim and Damian.
That's not what we got.
That's not what we got. We didn't get it from the people I would like to see it from. But I also like the idea that like they're the people who completely codify that for him. Like that, like Bruce has his family again and he holds on to them for dear life. But it's the moment he has friends, I think, is almost as special as that truly helps him like become a person again. And it's via him learning to love not only the people around him, without fear of losing them. Like he fears losing them, but like he accepts, like, I love these people, and to love them fully, I have to accept that they may be in danger sometimes. And it's having those friends around him that all decide that like he's worth saving too. That is beautiful. I love that character progression for Bruce.
I don't mind the progression, especially from where we started in BVS. Like there's no way you could ship him being a murderer for multiple films, I should say. Now, what are we going to
keep talking and vamping? I'm going to be right back.
All right. Now, what are we going to see in the Snyder Cut? We don't know. I have a feeling a lot of like happy, giddy character development moments that Jarod is a fan of is not going to be present in the Snyder Cut. And I'm not saying I hated all of it. I really didn't. A lot of Batman's dry humor and the sarcasm in this movie, it works for me. It's just limits and understanding of like, okay, but would he actually say that? Would he actually behave this way? In the version of Batman, in my mind, the answer is no. It's a little too different from a movie or a year in between movie releases. I don't know how long of a timeline it was from the end of BVS to the beginning of Justice League, so that's on me. But as far as his arc goes, it just feels too quick. It feels... Jarod, in the audio commentary, we talked about it a lot, that it seems like Batman is all about redemption in this movie. He failed Clark in life. He won't do it in death. He wants to bring him back for life, back to life, trading lives. Batman 100% thinks that he's going to die. It's just very apparent throughout the whole film, and Jarod and I talk about that a lot in the audio commentary. So going along with that, welcome back. Batman wanting to die, or seemingly accepted that he is going to die in this film. It is nice to see that like Wonder Woman makes the call of like, nah, all of us are going down there and we're going to start and finish this fight as a team. I like that.
I like that too. And what you said as I walked out for a second, that so much of Batman, like, and I think it's subconscious for Bruce. I think it's a character decision that's made, that just being around these people, he starts to let his guard down. That like that's a choice for it. That's a subconscious thing that he's doing. That like it's a choice on Ben Affleck and Joss Whedon's part, because I really think that's Joss Whedon stuff. Again, fuck him. I like this movie a lot. But those moments for Bruce are very much subconscious, that he's like not realizing he's letting his guard down. And between that and this hope and want to save the world, by extension, the universe, is born of what he witnessed Superman do. And there's a part of him.
Symbolistically, do you mean?
What do you mean by that?
When you're like showing the world like what Superman can do, and like Batman's inspiration on that. Do you
Both.
just mean like
I mean that literally, that like he saw, like he had the moment where he came off of his like murder rage because Martha, right?
Moving on.
He has his moment where he comes down from that and he's like, I'm going to help you save Martha. And then he sees what Clark does for humanity. And then he sees him do it. I think that Bruce took from that he is capable of that kind of like hero sacrifice.
Yeah.
And commits to that. Whether or not he's entirely right in the way he interpreted it is another question. And I think that's a great deal of his character in this movie is learning to accept those around him as friends and partners, and their ability to convince him that he is in turn worth saving, just like everybody else in the equation is. So in short, I don't think we're going to get as much of that in the Snyder Cut, because I do think a lot of that was Joss Whedon stuff, and we know not a lick of Joss Whedon content is going to be in the Snyder Cut, apparently.
Plus, all the nightmare scenes we're getting, that's not going to be a very fruitful Batman.
No, it's going to be a vicious Batman. And that's, again, like for me going into the Snyder Cut, I am checking at the door, you know, that and you know, I'm a big fan of, you know, I like truth and I'm a big fan of justice. I'm aware though I'm not getting that. I am aware that I am not getting Booyah. I'm aware that I'm not going to get like a Batman who learns to like accept himself as being worth it. That he's not just this, you know, angry golem bent on revenge. I checked those expectations the day it was announced. I accepted it's going to be a vicious Batman. It's going to be this very distant version of Superman. I accepted everything. I know that's not what I'm going to get in the Snyder Cut. And that's why I'm going to be doing my best to not be comparing these movies. Because I know that tonally, this is a different story that I cannot expect. I'm not going into this movie expecting to walk away with that, like, oh, these heroes, like they enjoy being around each other. And like, I don't want to say that they love each other yet in that like familial way that they do in the comics, but like you can see the seeds being planted of like Flash and Cyborg being cool, all cool in the gang, and like Wonder Woman's little I work with children. The way that she reacts to them, all, you know, like I can't feel my toes hurt. All of that, you know, the way that Bruce is, you know, just the awkward dad in the group because he's like, he clearly likes all of them. He likes being around them. When's the last time Bruce Wayne liked somebody in these movies? When is the last time Bruce looked at somebody and was like, this dude, this guy, funny as shit. I like him. He's like, this bitch over here, he runs fast, he eat the whole pizza by himself. Like, when's the last time Bruce enjoyed being around people? You know what I mean? That shit, the fact that Bruce likes being around people, he likes being around them, and he can't help but be awkward about it. He's like, so let me know if the fish, do you talk to fish? Like, he doesn't know how to engage these people, but he loves being around them. And even though like Aquaman and they get on his nerves at first, that's the facade, you know, he's putting that up. He's putting it on. You know, it's not him. It's not who he really is. And he's finally getting to see that again. I'm not going to get that in the Snyder Cut. And that's okay. Because that's Zack Snyder's vision. That's the whole point of the Snyder Cut, right? Mm-hmm. But this movie does showing these characters become a team, become friends, become a second family by extension, eventually shows like the beginnings of that so well.
I agree with you there.
And if I had my druthers, this is nothing against Zack Snyder and everything that went into the Snyder Cut, the tragedy that led up to the Snyder Cut being necessitated, I would not actually make this decision because I know why the Snyder Cut has to exist, because he had to leave, because of what happened with Autumn, and because Joss Whedon, bastard. If you remove those two factors,
you wouldn't have gotten like the humility.
Like, how do I put this? In a universe where Zack Snyder stepping away from Justice League is not steeped in tragedy, and Joss Whedon isn't a monster, and let's say that it was creative differences in WB not being happy with Snyder's performance, so they replaced him, and the Snyder Cut movement still happens, and we get all of this. Like everything plays up the same, except Joss Whedon isn't a piece of shit, because he is, and Zack Snyder didn't step away because of tragedy, which breaks my heart, and it's because of that I am so excited for the Snyder Cut and for his vision. Remove those two things. Snyder Cut movement still happens just because people wanted to see Zack's version. I would sacrifice 30 Snyder Cuts for one Justice League sequel. If like
a Joss Whedon sequel.
Yes. Again, remove the two big factors, which are the tragedy that made the Snyder Cut, or made the Joss Whedon cut come to existence, and the fact that Joss Whedon should never work in Hollywood again. Work at a Subway, even, like, fuck you. Made it impossible for me to watch Angel, you son of a bitch, you monster. Charisma Carpenter and Ray deserve every red cent you have, you son of a bitch. I would take that. I love the tone of this movie. And I personally understand. I think if you remove the fact that he made Avengers 1 and 2, I don't think so many people would say this feels like a Marvel movie. I think people say that. I think that there's like a part in our brain that goes, oh, well, I recognize Joss Whedon's style. And I think that the MCU and Kevin Feige wanted the Joss Whedon style for their movies.
Yeah.
Because the MCU feels like television played out on the big screen. They wanted that element so badly that they called in Joss Whedon. He helped set the tone, and then the MCU took it from there. And that by the time we get past Age of Ultron and Whedon's no longer in the picture, they still have that tone because he helped them establish what it feels like when everybody's in the room together.
Yeah.
Okay. That's just Joss Whedon's style. I don't think Justice League feels like a Marvel movie. It feels like a Joss Whedon TV show. It feels like I'm watching an episode of Buffy or Angel. And it's because I know how much of this is Whedon. It's because so much of this feels like Joss Whedon. That is the vibe I get from it. I understand where people come from with the Marvel thing, but I think a lot of that has to do with his history at Marvel Studios.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, because they're mistaking is the Joss Whedon style of like quippy action, and it's, you know, people in these insane, inspirational, larger than life situations who also go home and have a normal life on top of that. That what the MCU wanted to do lent itself so well to Joss Whedon's style that Joss Whedon-esque, larger than life circumstances, larger than life characters, but normal life people. And there's the character and there's the person, you know, and then there's the person who's in that character, and there's the larger than life character within the person. That tone is what I think a lot of people go, oh, Marvel movie. And it's like, no, Marvel wanted to do that. Marvel wanted to do what? Because again, like that's how Marvel comics were written.
Yeah.
You know, is Iron Man is, you know, this armored Avenger, billionaire, smooth guy, playboy, whatever, you know, genius intellect, builds a suit of armor. Yeah, da, 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 da. He's an alcoholic with daddy issues. You know, it's the way that like you can just stack and stack and stack and stack all these incredible things about these characters. At the end of the day, who are they as a person? That is what this movie is doing. And it feels so jarring because we went from this very, very, in my opinion, in my interpretation, kind of hopeless, really dreary version of these characters that then gets rammed right into that Joss Whedon dripping tone. That it is incredibly jarring. And it is very hard to adjust to from where we were.
So things Joss Whedon did well. I think we have the best iteration of Henry Cavill's Superman that we've seen.
Perfect.
I think he brought a true sense of like camaraderie between the league.
There's the most picket fence baseball playing, apple pie eating motherfucker. It was perfect. Oh my God. I love truth and I'm a big fan of justice.
Is this guy still bothering you?
Sucker punch. Is this guy still bothering you?
I love that.
I thought you didn't bring me back because you liked me. He says it with a smile on his face. He's not spiteful at all. He's literally busting Bruce's balls. He's like, you literally, like the last time I was awake 3 hours ago, you almost stabbed me in the face with a spear made of kryptonite. And because you know what? Because he's Superman. He gets it. People act up. He gets it. It's fine. It's whatever. He's okay now. He's like, oh yeah, okay, Bruce. Nice to see you still fond of me. It's so Superman. It's so funny. It's so precious. It took this movie 5 minutes of Superman being back in the fight with Steppenwolf to feel like the Superman Batman bromance within 30 seconds. They're messing with each other. You get the scene back at the Kent farmhouse where it's like, thank you, Bruce. This means the world. Like, I don't know how you got the bank to give the house. Oh, I bought the bank. It's like, yeah, man. It's like, because like what else am I gonna do? Like, I have enough bat-shaped toys. I'll help, your mother not be homeless, I guess. I'm sorry. I'm
It's
going
okay.
off because
I love watching you just like
I
get really
love
excited.
this movie, and I hate that it's made by this bastard Joss Whedon.
So continuing off what Whedon did well. The humility is totally there. There's more. I feel like you've hit the nail with a lot of it as far as what Joss didn't do well. Or I guess, I don't know exactly who to put the blame on. I guess I'll know for sure tomorrow. But I feel like we have a super weak villain. I did not care for Steppenwolf. I didn't care about him. I don't know what all the mother's stuff is about. I know, like, I've read other like things that like, oh, like his mother's actually trapped somewhere and like doing all this is gonna free her. Cool. I didn't get that from this movie, but cool, I guess. I didn't find Steppenwolf menacing. Let's put it that way. And in the final fight, because of how I think they set up parademons, the stakes weren't that high for me. And I remember thinking that in the theater way back when, too. It's just kind of like, it feels like less intense than the Battle of New York did. Which, I get that New York is a populated area, people are dying, skyscrapers are getting knocked over, but it still had that like sense of like, oh shit, the same sense I got Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman versus Doomsday. Like, they're getting
I think I know why that
smacked
is.
around.
I think I know why that is. Throughout the entirety of Avengers, it's the chase for the Tesseract. And the only real enemies we've crossed paths with are S.H.I.E.L.D. operatives who are under the control of Loki. And by the time the Chitauri arrive, it's the first time we're seeing the Chitauri. And they're arriving in such force of numbers. And they're a new threat all at once.
Okay, fair points.
So like it's the numbers mixed with like it's okay that like most of them are one-hit KOs for most of the Avengers. Nat's just got to shoot him once. Cap's got to shield bash him once. Thor's got to hit him once with a hammer. Yada yada yada. Almost all of them go down in one hit, right?
Yeah.
But the sheer force of number and the fact that they're new and the portals opening above, like it's
okay, maybe not my best example.
No. I think it's a great example in how parademons. Like, again, New York works and the Chitauri work because there's a shitload of them and they're new and the Loki's winning. Like, Loki's winning the fight right now because the portal is open in the first place. There's enough things stacked on top of each other that make the Chitauri more threatening than the parademons.
Yeah. Bottom line, Steppenwolf and the parademons, not sold on it. I enjoyed a lot of it. Like, I liked the fight between the League and Steppenwolf at the end, but most of that was because of shit that Superman was doing, being honest with you. And
it's the best part of the fight.
The cold breath, super cool. The teamworky combo moves between 2, maybe 3 characters at a time. I enjoyed that. Maybe the tone shift was like a little too much for me. As someone that was really sold on like the Dark Knight trilogy and being over the moon excited that Chris Nolan produced Man of Steel, I expected that grounded feeling of existing in like a real world, which the Marvel movies do too. But like the Dark Knight was just a little different tonally, obviously. Yeah. And I wanted that to sort of continue. To just differentiate from Marvel. Like, I still thought Bruce was superhuman in that trilogy. I loved all the villains. so much work there, and I guess I'm still just really frustrated that they couldn't figure out a way to make it work in the 2 films prior to Justice League, not including Wonder Woman. Well, I guess including Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman wasn't like hysterical by any means. It was definitely felt super grounded, and the funny parts of it came from like the fish out of water experience.
You should be very proud of this. The ice cream.
Yeah, and like
It's our favorite joke in the whole movie.
just like moments. I think that moments in this movie should be funny, not necessarily the characters. I'm glad that some of them are. Aquaman makes me laugh. The Flash had me laughing, then had me nose sniffling, then had me not reacting at all. Batman's dark, sarcastic, dry humor. I'm a big fan of that. Just like a little one-liner of something like really,
so you're playing well with others again.
something a little
Might be temporary.
cynical, like something just a little cynical, a little like you ass, or like whatever. Trying to think what else happened in this movie. J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon, big fan of that. Probably just because he's J. Jonah too.
That might be the most wasted potential in all of comic book movies. Like, of all time, period, end of discussion. Like, I can't think of another comic book role that I'm more disappointed that we won't get to see than J.K. Simmons is Jim Gordon.
Hey, we get an HBO Max Ben Affleck series. You never know.
I'm not holding my breath for it.
I
I'd love
wouldn't
to
either.
see
I
it.
might not see it again.
I'd love to see it, but I think in the last we see of Batfleck is going to be the Flash movie if it happens.
Yeah, they're full steam ahead. We got Michael Keaton. We got X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Come see this movie. When? Like when it's time for me to take a mortgage out on a house?
Yeah,
I can be
honestly.
like, oh yeah, honey, you want to go see a movie tonight?
It's after Ezra Miller serves a sentence for attacking that woman. That's why they keep pushing it back, because they're like, how long is he going to be locked up for chokeslamming a woman? Anyway, I will say there are some things that don't exactly work. I agree with you on Steppenwolf, but I also think that as a fan of the source material, I don't think you should be, and I've said this 1,000 times, and I'm not going to beat this dead horse anymore. Steppenwolf, Darkseid, anything apocalyptian, wrong choice of villains, period. I don't think there's any good reason, unless you really, really know that you're doing the new 52 style. We start with Darkseid and he just comes back every so often. But like comic book movies don't like to let their villains live longer than the credits.
I feel like Loki lasted a while. I'm just saying that to be an ass.
No, but again, he's definitely an exception to the
Oh
rule.
yeah.
I think the
A fan
MCU
favorite.
I think the MCU very quickly realized, not very quickly, but eventually realized we need to start letting these guys live. Like they're like,
Rip
okay, like
Killmonger.
Loki got to live because they knew they needed him to be a foil for Thor. So he got to kick around, and they started letting the Vulture live, and then Zemo lived, and then people start to get a little bit of a shelf life here. So they were going to let Darkseid and maybe even Steppenwolf survive this movie, sure, but most likely will never know what the future looks like and what it could have been. We know from like the original ideas Snyder had, it looked like Darkseid remained the main threat. And then it was basically 3 movies about defeating Darkseid, which I dig, I guess. But I agree, Steppenwolf just kind of shows up. And, it's implied here that it's like, oh, well, Superman died, therefore they could begin their invasion. Okay, whatever. Yeah, Steppenwolf just doesn't work. He's there. He's there to make the heroes do things, and then he's there to have just get the piss beaten out of him by Superman.
It's just a plot device, I feel like, instead of a villain. Like, take out the scene with Ma Kent and Lois just talking in that conference room and give me like he's from Apocalypse. This is his actual motivation. Something more than just a line of mother. Like,
Yeah, we
just
get one for
more.
Dark Side. Like they're gonna get to expand on that. Ever.
Like, not everyone in the audience knows who the hell that is. So, like, a visual representation at least would have been nice. I still would have bitched about that, but I don't know. The villain, I'm excited to get more Cyborg. Ray Fisher, man.
I am gonna take a shot in the dark here and say most of what we see from Cyborg is from Snyder.
Yeah.
I really feel like a lot of that is him. If again, I'll be surprised, but I think a lot of it's Zack. I don't think there's a single bad performance in this movie, though.
No, not performance.
Like even the guy who plays Steppenwolf is good at what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, just reading off the page.
He's reading.
I'm sure
a
ton of his lines got cut.
Certainly. My God, yeah.
I'm sure there's like 20 minutes of extra Steppenwolf screen time just floating around.
I mean, we got 4 hours coming at us, so it's probably roughly that. Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. Also, not holding my breath. It's not like Joss Whedon's like the shit and like Zack Snyder is shit, and vice versa. I think they both had a decent idea of what they were doing. Because, like, for some degrees, it worked. Like, even in Man of Steel, even in Batman v Superman, there are elements that worked that are why I guess Zack Snyder was continuously brought back. God damn, man. I have no faith for tomorrow. Like,
I'm going in. That's my thing. I'm going into like it's like I'm going into like a demolition derby.
Yeah.
You know, I'm only this time, like, I know there's going to be a lot of Christ imagery at this demolition derby. Like, a monster truck's going to get smashed, and then again, like, somehow, like, the rebar comes up and across. You know? Yeah.
Just black suit Superman.
That's going to look cool. I'm expecting a pretty looking movie that will be a lot to take in. Holy shit, are we already at 40 minutes?
Wow.
Wow, it feels like no time.
Number's really small. I could not see that. What else haven't we covered about the movie yet?
I feel like we got most of it, man. Like
flashback sequence of like the previous invasion.
That's cool. We obviously know that's going to be very different in the Snyder Cut.
I've always been like, what an interesting way to portray like Greek mythology on the screen. Like, it's a little jarring. Like, yeah, we have Thor and Loki and Marvel and sure, like, that's all well and good. But, like, we actually get to see Zeus. Like, a young, yoked Zeus just, like, shooting lightning at ships and, like, a pre-evil Ares and, like, Athena? Yeah, Athena also in the movie, and like their powers.
I just forgot to say the word yes and just got in my head at you. I don't know.
I was like, oh, okay.
Jarod.exe has stopped. I don't know what that was about.
Jarod looks a little unsure too, but you know, Athena. And
I think you're right.
But yeah, the Green Lantern, what a in theater, like, moment. Like, very satisfying. And I can't wait to see that get fleshed out.
I think it is.
Yeah, I think
we'll see this Green Lantern shoot a couple more energy blasts before Darkseid cuts him in half.
I want to see him
this
speak.
Way. I'd love to speak.
I'd love to hear what that guy's voice sounds like. What kind of creature he is. Just like, I don't know. It's little shit. And it's Zack Snyder. So I feel like he's like, I want to show them what he sounds like. And what planet do you come from?
I think you're confusing Zack Snyder with George Lucas right now. That does not sound anything like something Snyder would be super interested in. I think what he'd rather show you is the fact that like that Green Lantern like has a space alcohol problem and like beats his wife. Like I think that's what that Green Lantern does. I don't think like, you know, I know I'm going into a movie that's probably going to be very hopeless. But like again, some of the reviews I'm seeing, they're not bad. And they're saying they're like, you know, it's fun. You know, it's surprisingly fun. I don't know. I got I have my hopes at like middle ground of what happens, and I will enjoy what I see because I'm prepared for pleasant mediocrity, kind of.
I know Zack Snyder at least says he's never seen the theatrical cut. But there is a part of me that certainly hopes he like heard the positivity surrounding like tonal changes and was just like, I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of both in there. I feel like I would be happier with like a combination of the two.
I will say, as a matter of ego, and I don't mean that disrespectfully at all. I think as a matter of ego, Zach is not going to warp his movie to resemble Joss Whedon's in the slightest.
Maybe not resembling, but just for the betterment of the universe that you've made. Like the overwhelming response of just like too damn dark, bro. Like just like if you took the humility that this movie, like the theatrical release of Justice League, the humility and like the camaraderie and the charisma between the league.
I don't want to sound like an ass. I think you're going for humanity.
Isn't that the same thing?
No, humility is like being humble.
Wow. 20 years old. I had no idea.
I feel like a dick for saying that. But
No,
I also
but
know
like,
you well
you've
enough to know
also
you would want to
spared-
know.
Yes, thank you. You have spared me from further misuse of that word. But humanity. Really enjoying connecting, bonding with these characters, seeing them bond with each other. I hope that is present. I really, really do. I hope the dry humor is there. I don't know. Maybe I am a little hopeful. I'm prepared to be let down, but I'm hopeful. I feel like we're not talking about enough of this movie. And maybe it's just because we talked about it a lot during the audio commentary.
We talked about it a lot during the audio commentary, but like there's also like the main thing to talk about this movie is the character work, because that's the biggest problem with the last two, at least for you,
Yeah.
or at least for me, and I assume you as well.
Correct.
Is that the character work and characterization does not work. End of discussion.
True.
Right? So we're here now. That's the biggest thing to discuss, because the plot is kind of a nothing burger. The plot is an excuse to have these characters on screen together, at least in the case of this movie. And now we're aware of the fact that, like, okay, well, like, what the heck? Like, you know, it's just, it does this weird screenwriting faux pas where I can't remember who I heard said this, but they talked about like how one of the worst things a movie can be is an and then screenplay.
Heard
that. Superman dies, and then Steppenwolf invades, and then Batman has to get a team together, and then. It's not because of then this happens. It's and then. And like scenes happen and then after each other a lot. There's not a whole lot to discuss with the plot. It is
good point. Yeah.
A lot of the conversation we had here is about the characters and its main character, Batman. So I feel like there isn't a whole lot to dive into. And again, for me, fight you, Joss Whedon. For me, this movie was such a good interpretation of Batman remembering to be the man before the bat.
I feel like that's in some comic runs, just not who the Batman is.
It depends on who's writing him, and it depends on where he is in his career.
All right. I love the Batman that Bruce Wayne is the alter ego.
I agree. And I think Batman can get to a point where he is kind of where he is at the end of Justice League here, where he has friends who love him, and in the comics, a Bat family who he loves dearly and love him in return, and still accept the fact that he is Batman, not Bruce Wayne. And that there's a part of him that is always going to be this force of nature, and that there are character traits and personality flaws that he has that are incredibly toxic and incredibly self-destructive. And it's just a part of who he is, period. What changes is his ability to be around other people in the way that they help him negate that and helps him do better as a person. That's what I mean. I agree with you.
Okay.
I think our interpretations of Batman are nearly identical. I think the only difference is how much those people change him and the people who aren't on that poster
Yeah.
for the better.
I like a more human Batman. Just dial down some of the comedy. I know it sounds weird, but like when I think of Batman, I think of the warehouse scene in BVS and like the instilling fear in people. I don't even feel like he fights with all that, like something about the warehouse scene. He's fighting with hatred in his body. I love that. Channeling that, owning that. Sure, it's one of your biggest demons, but it's also one of your greatest strengths. And I feel like Batman gets his ass handed to him more often than he should in this movie. Granted, he's going up against foreign aliens, and like you said, perhaps like another armored suit or something like that. But Batman, picking up a freaking gun and like...
Yeah, that's what we said in the audio commentary. I'd rather see Batman doing fisticuffs or using gadgets or using strategy against these guys than it just being like, okay, I have one of your guns now, and it's just Bat Rambo mowing down parody.
For Batman exclusively during this final fight, it was oddly manageable, but also just not clean. Like he looks, I know that he's older. It's just like, where is like the intensity? I guess that's what I'm saying. The intensity that this is the final battle. Da 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 da. He has to contribute in his own way. And yeah, he drives the shit out of the Batmobile. And it's cool. And like he's drifting and shooting at the same time. I'm all for it. It's just, I don't know, the intensity of like what you delivered in the last film and then what we get in this film. I feel like Batman could have done more. Granted, I'm sure he thought he was going to die, and then he was kind of just rolling with it after that.
Yeah, well, and that's another thing. And one of my favorite things tonally that we talked about in the audio commentary that I do want to bring up here before we wrap up is that, again, it is the way that Batman looks at his mission. And it's the way that Batman cannot, even though sometimes it will be, a permanent solution. And then he looks at the situation that is caused by the events of BVS, blames himself for Superman's death, and looks at this situation as the only way I can make this right is if I find a way to bring him back. And on top of bringing him back, I need to emulate his sacrifice. And it is the way that Bruce internally looks at what he did as like this transactional, like I'm going to give my life for his and give my life for the Earth. Because by putting him in a situation that got him killed, I signed Earth's death warrant. And that Bruce blames himself. And that is such an integral part of his character is that blame that he puts on himself for his parents.
He blamed himself in BVS though.
He did. But he doesn't. That doesn't mean he stops blaming himself. He be like that. We see the beginning of I failed him in life. I won't fail him in death. We saw him accept that. We see the ramifications of Bruce living in that place of guilt, and I really like that. And I like that whenever this Pet Cemetery Superman confronts him, it's like the world needs you, but does it need you? The answer is no. They do not need the Batman that Superman fought.
True.
What they need is the Batman that is born in this movie.
And I'm saying that guy could have just been like a little more badass.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. I am never going to pass up the opportunity to see more of Batman being a Bamf.
Oh, yeah.
That is the number one thing I want to see at all times. So I agree with you on that. And I do think that they could have done more with but do they need you? I think they could have done more with that moment of like Bruce going, no, the world does need me. Not the vengeful monster, but the guardian.
Yeah.
And while I do love seeing when Batman is fighting with that rage and hatred in his heart, it's fun to watch, at least for me, because I know that eventually he'll grow beyond it.
Yeah.
And that's what I love to see. Is that I think Batman is more interesting and is more beautiful of a character when he is fighting to protect more than he is fighting to destroy. Those are the moments I love Batman the most. When he is a guardian more than a demon and a monster. But I'm just proselytizing about Batman at this point. So I think with that, Devin, final thoughts on a letter grade.
Final thoughts. Poor villain. For the most part, great character development. Great job giving us a Justice League that is fun to watch. All of their relationships with each other. I like where all of them have started. And I probably won't, but that's something I would have signed on for to see grow. Action sequences. All right. I don't know. Even in Themyscira, like every action sequence in this movie was just like all right. I love I got the highlight of the action sequences. It was real small. Superman versus Wonder Woman. Just like the headbutt battle. That's something like the intensity, something like that, edge of my seat. Oh, like shit like that. That's at least what I expect to a degree walking into one of these movies. Action sequence, a little underwhelming for me. I like the ending of the movie. We got to see Superman and Flash race ish, and the Justice League setup in Wayne Manor. I like where it was going. Overall, I think Justice League, it's going to get a C from me. It was close to a C minus, but I admittedly did have fun with this movie. So it's going to get a C. Jesus. Jarod?
I'm kind of about to pull a Wild Wild West. I really do love this movie. I hate that it's made by somebody whom I now find detestable. And I'm like, this isn't a joke. This isn't me doing a bit. This isn't me playing anything up. I'm getting legitimately angry with myself with how much I'm praising this movie because of how much I have come to hate Joss Whedon the more I've learned about this man. So I don't like how much I like this movie, almost to this movie's detriment. I'm in part embarrassed by the fact that there came a point in the movie where like I had to keep reminding myself who kind of made this and whose fingerprints are all over it. Because it was like, oh, I got so into it and I got so excited watching every second of it. And then remembered he's a bastard and everything he did. That said, the plot is kind of a nothing burger, but the characterization is incredible. And when I see this league united, I see a team of heroes who are virtually unmatched. And I feel the hope that comes with seeing this team of gods working together to protect the planet. And this is the first in this trilogy of movies that I walked out of hopeful. I'm giving the Justice League cut of Justice League a begrudging B+.
Okay.
But an F for Joss Whedon. An F for Joss Whedon just because he's a bad person. But like the movie that is also built on the performances and writing and you know, there's a lot of other people who worked on this movie other than Joss Whedon, and they deserve the B+. But Joss Whedon existence gets an F.
I can live with that. I like that. Having seen you watched it, nice.
I want you to know that's exactly what I was like in the theater, March 24th, 9 p.m., 2016. The whole time I was just like, ooh, except for Superman. The Superman shit I was still annoyed by.
Yeah.
But like anytime Batman was like, ooh, and then he started murdering, and I was like, Anyway, Devin, where can the lovely people find you, my friend?
Guys, you can follow me on Instagram at Devin J. Armel. You can find me on Twitter at DevinArmel1. Jarod, how about yourself?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at DarkJedi2552. And you can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on our website, www.thenerdacademypodcast.com, where if you're feeling generous, you can donate to our Patreon page. Speaking of our patrons, thank you to our $10 alumnus, Case and Bria on the Waffle Wizard, Delta 9, and Zach Knaus. You guys help us make the content that we love to produce. If you would like to hear a show like this a week early on Snyder Cut Eve or the day of the Snyder Cut, as opposed to my birthday, March 25th, which is when this episode will be dropping for the main feed after the Snyder Cut's already out, consider the $10 tier where you'll get early access to this and Campus Life. Or you can check out the $5 tier where you get to hear the audio commentaries we do for this show, as well as the Knights of the Nerd Republic Versus series. And Heroic History 101. We do lots of great stuff on our Patreon. Go ahead and check it out. You can also support the Nerd Academy podcast even further if you would like to. Go ahead and click on the student store link on our website. We can get all manner of Nerd Academy goodies. Get the pillow he's holding on to. You can get some bomb-ass stickers. I forget to wear my shirts every time I'm on. I wear my Nerd Academy merch everywhere except for when I'm recording the goddamn shows. I think I've worn a TNAP shirt once
During a show.
on air. I leave the house. It's always Nerd Academy shit. I wear my mask all the time. I'm a TNAP mask. All manner of Nerd Academy goodies all there on our TeePublic. Thank you all so very much for listening. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do the things, and
Fuck is it?
cut.